Hi everyone, welcome to the Witches in Finland. I'm Sami, psychoanalytic psychotherapist and psychohistorian from Finland. What I'm going to talk about today is succubus theme, something about witch trials, history, quite a lot of mythology. I will present shortly some movies related to this topic, and finally I will talk about nightmares and the, you could say, eyes of Lilith, about shame and psychoanalytic psychotherapy. The purpose of this presentation is to understand how this phenomena is common for all cultures and how we could understand ourselves better through these wonderful, interesting mythological stories.
Witches.
Let me start with some general information on how this theme appeared in witch trials for the first time. 1324 in Kilkenny, Ireland, happened that Lady Alice Kittler and her associates were accused of witchcraft. Lady Alice was, as you can guess, a rich woman. She had married money not one time but 4 times. Who hated her were her stepsons and stepdaughters, who husbands had by earlier marriages. Daughters and sons complained bitterly that by sorcery she had killed some of them. From one box that belonged to Alice, horrible things were found, and these were taken to local bishop. The whole case became very big. Alice Kittler and William Outlaw were accused of maleficium and homicide, but they were also accused of organizing a whole heretical group. It was claimed that they did all kind of rituals and awful things was made in their meetings, including animal sacrifice, making candles from human fat, making different poison and ointments, that they sought the counsel of demons and were living like heretics against the Christian church. It was also claimed that Lady Alice herself was receiving the private demon as her incubus and allowed him to copulate with her. In return, the demon gave her wealth. For the first time in European history, so far as is known, a woman was accused of having acquired the power of sorcery through having sexual intercourse with the demon. Other members of the heretic group were punished or killed, but Lady Alice escaped to England with the help of her kinsfolk. Look for more information from Norman Cohn, 75 Europe's Inner Demons. Like Brian Levack, 1987, has noted, it is important to note that those witch beliefs that concern the relationship between witches and the devil were mainly the property of the literature and ruling classes and not the common people. Although popular beliefs in demonic spirits, incubi and succubi, orgies and cannibalism had provided some of the raw material out of which such ideas had been fashioned, the actual formulation of those ideas had been a work of priests, philosophers and lawyers, judges, clerics, magistrates, and landlords. However, once these ideas were presented to them, they had little difficulty accepting them. The idea of miserable peasant making a pact with the devil in order to improve his lot and attending a shocking orgy in order to gain culinary and sexual pleasure was hardly alien to a peasant mentality. Few words about the book Malleus Maleficarum. The Witch's Hammer tells of examples where men have lost their male organs. However, they have gotten it back after finding the witch who had used the witchcraft against them. The Witch's Hammer, Malleus Maleficarum, emphasized that the organs were actually not detached from the body, but once again it was a matter of evil illusions of the demons. If a person came under such illusion, it was also his fault, because his faith should have acted as a protective armor. The Witch's Hammer declared that an individual can be under the powers of incubus and the succubus demons in three different ways. First, voluntarily, second, against their will, and the third group was a particularly vulnerable group of certain types of virgins. Especially girls with long hair were at risk because they tended to perform seductively anyway. Symptoms of such demonization were, I translate this to modern language, compulsive masturbation, sexual fantasies and dreams, and possibly sleep disorders. Fabulating, hysteria, and psychosis can be certainly added to the list. But it doesn't matter what the symptom was, the treatment was always the same: asking God's help and attempt to banish the demons and prescribed repentance exercises such as praying. Desire and lust were sins. Sexuality is not in the lead. These were questions of reproductive power, the ability to have offspring in a blessed marriage. According to the Witch's Hammer, it was possible to see incubus demons, but they could also appear invisible and evaporate like smoke into the air. Honorable women and girls were more at risk of seduction of the devil than men, for, as has already been said so often, a woman was more open to the seduction of a serpent because she had already fallen in the paradise. Objects and things hidden under the threshold gained power, and their removal made the magic disappear. The magic witches used when they wanted to influence in reproductive power, you can find that the symbolism is pretty concrete there. Snakes were used, and testicles of different animals were used. Sigmund Freud's dream theory has been criticized for its straightforwardness, but actually the symbols are sometimes very concrete. The testicles of the ram have male strength. The reindeer's horn helps with impotence. It is a hard and upright object. The tiger's penis is even more powerful magical wand. Let that be enough of this book, Malleus Maleficarum. Let's go back in human history. It is really difficult to trace where the succubus myth originated. Winged creatures with human features have been present on all continents. Let's start from the Egyptian mythology. The ancient Egyptians believed that the soul was made up of many parts. One of them was Ba, that is B-A. According to Allen, the Ba was everything that makes an individual unique, similar to the notion of personality. In this sense, inanimate objects could also have a Ba, a unique character. And indeed, Old Kingdom pyramids often were called the Ba of their owner. The Ba is an aspect of a person that the Egyptians believed would live after the body died. And it's sometimes depicted as a human-headed bird flying out of the tomb to join with the Ka, that is K-A, that means vital essence in the afterlife. Of course, when talking about beasts with human face, you have to mention Sphinx. The Greeks, unlike the Egyptians, wrote down history, and they remembered the origin of the Sphinx was in Egypt. Probably in the most famous of their stories, the Sphinx presented in a mystery of Oedipus, the myth of which Sigmund Freud was particularly enthusiastic. Greece also remembers the story of Odysseus, where there were sirens who were not mermaids like in some stories, but they were also winged seductresses. Flying female demon can also be found in Sumerian, Babylon, Syria, and Persia. For example, it is familiar from Jewish, Arab, and Germanic mythology. Many goddesses, such as Ishtar, are depicted in art as winged and with the feet of a bird. According to Nenon in 2006, the Romans knew a creature that flew and screamed like an owl at night. This creature was called Striga. The poet Ovid has told about this. These creatures were looking for children as victims at night. An unprotected child was taken home and his intestines were devoured. The branch of the hawthorn was protected from the striga bird, and if you brushed with strawberry leaves against the sides of the door and windows, it was also one way to protect home from the striga. Also, you could offer a pig for the striga instead of the child. Striga or Strix also attacked adults. In Golden Ass, Apuleius also writes about these creatures. There are similar creatures behind the vampire stories. In Romania, they were not originally such gentlemen like Count Dracula. These beliefs spread very widely. The Germans, in particular, believed in these stories as early as the 6th century. There was even a law that imposed a fine on anyone who took life force by mysterious means of witchcraft. Later, the man or woman suspected of being a striga was not allowed to be killed or eaten. Norman Cohn has stated that perhaps people try to gain their power back by eating the striga, and Nenonen does not believe this theory of Cohn, but he thinks it was more like a legend. The point, however, is that people had such beliefs and therefore a law was needed. Similar mythical creatures can be found in East Asia. In September 2020, there was a great episode in HBO's Lovecraft Country series in which Korean soldiers were chased by Gumiho, a nine-tailed fox demon Gumiho, who is very ruthless. Kitsune is a familiar character to anime enthusiasts. Japanese culture is generally well known in Western countries compared to its source, China. In China, the fox demon is known as Hulijing. It is a seductress who may also end up eating the victim's heart. Alf Gerlach, 2019, has written an article on collective castration anxieties. He had the opportunity of investigating a mass epidemic of hysteria in a syndrome known as Koro. This has happened in 10 years period between years 1985 and 1995 in Guangzhou province, China, formerly known Canton in English. Young male adults had a fear that their genitals might shrink and become sucked inside their bodies. All inhabitants of the village were convinced of this and joined forces in taking measures to fight the wicked fox demons who are responsible. On widespread Chinese myths recounts the tale of the Queen Mother Shi Wang Mu, who is deemed to rule all wicked and cruel spirits. She is also a symbol for the superiority of female sexuality. She collects large quantities of male sperm from which she reaps eternal life. According to Gerlach, culturally, men's desire for immortality through sex is projected into image of the female fox demons that seek to rob men of their vital energy, similar to the idea of femme fatale in Western societies and the Madonna whore split. The idea of the fox demon allows projection and symbolization of the dreaded aspect of unfettered female sexuality. I mentioned earlier in Egyptian mythology a creature called Ba. There are very interesting similarities to shamanistic mythology because according to Siikala in Siberia and also in Finland, there were beliefs that human had many different souls. What also can be found is that in Scandinavia there were beliefs that human soul flies out from the mouth in the moment of death. But souls could also come back, and therefore there were different ways to prevent that evil spirits did not find the way back. Fire was used, tombstones, etc. The Kalevala is Finland's national epic. I dealt with the theme a lot in the previous episode, but let me mention the Queen of the North once again. She is not described very carefully in the original poems, and the descriptions vary a lot. She has the ability to become a creature like eagle. This creature is a mythical animal and also has supernatural qualities. Perhaps most interesting is how folk poems describe the transformation into an eagle. This required a man's dress, some kind of shamanistic ritual, and the tail was vasta in Finnish. It is a bunch made of birch twigs, somewhat resembling a broom. We use it in sauna for recreation purposes. According to Siikala, in Finland, male witch Mikko Klementtinen invited Fire Eagle to set fire to his neighbor's barn. This bird resembles an eagle coming from the north, the mythical Fire Eagle. Here, magic was used as an instrument of revenge. It was a case of maleficium. But you can say that Finns and the areas of Karelia and Baltic Sea are really bird people. Just our mythical birds were not beast-like like creatures in some other countries, but rather a variety of beliefs were associated with our native birds. Let's now move to Jewish and Christian beliefs and talk about Adam's first wife, Lilith. Circumcision, which is part of Jewish customs, is part of religious but also magical rituals. According to Shur, during his first days, the child was considered to be prone to the demon and therefore at risk of death. At its most careful nocturnal surveillance was night before the circumcision. Amulets were brought into the windows and all the openings leading to the room. It was believed that Lilith, this dangerous night goddess or female demon, wants to capture the newborn baby. In Jewish mythology, Lilith, who lived in the paradise alongside Adam, was created from a mold like Adam. Unlike Eve, who was built from the Adam's rib, Lilith wanted to be equal with Adam. Adam and Lilith never found peace together, and she refused to lie beneath him in sexual intercourse. I would like to make a note here that female demon is usually always on the top of her victim. Lilith uttered the ineffable name of God and flew up into the air of the world. Eventually, she dwelt in a cave in the desert on the shores of the Red Sea. let's talk about movies. On the subject of incubus, I recommend the film Entity, starring wonderful Barbara Hershey. In a way, the incubus theme can also be found from the Rosemary's Baby by Polanski. Species or even Basic Instinct can count in this category. There are several new films on the succubus theme, like Jennifer's Body. I like Hammer House of Horror TV episode Carpathian Eagle from 1980s. You can find it in YouTube. It's not great art, but it's funny in a campy way. I already mentioned the Lovecraft Country. The Gumiho episode is the best of the whole series, I think. Actually, for me, the best succubus film is a non-horror film. It is The Sea of Love from the year 1989. Few words about the Finnish movie Succubus. I will quote directly the review of Ilja Rautsi from 2006 in elitist.net. Succubus or Succubus the Demon is the third feature film by the film group Blood Ceremony Films, and it continues on the path of indicated by its prodigious desire of the innocent blood and the rights of blood. This time with less nudity and bloodshed, a pity itself because it was sex and violence that the anemic succubus would have missed to save the shaky content. Henry, played by Markus Salo. Henry's life breaks into the pieces when his wife Laura, who is played by Veera Toivonen, dies. At the workplace, Henry's sorrow and depression is not fully understood, and step by step the man becomes more and more alienated from the reality until he finally snaps. In between, we visit with a medium and see some ghosts. That's it. 3/4 of the succubus duration can be only seen as Markus Salo painfully stuck face in the form of short but endless scenes in black illumination in poor lighting. Ilja Rautsi ends his review of this film that is also annoying. You cannot say something good because you can see they have tried their best. I would like to add one thing for this review by myself. I don't know if it happened by accident or if some background work was done. Succubus does not pick up its victims randomly. There is some negative energy that she needs. The protagonist of the film was faced several losses in his life. First, his wife died. In addition, it turns out that his wife has betrayed the husband several times. The pain of the protagonist is just a good description of the shame. So, enter Lilith. Next, I'm going to talk about nightmares and dreams. According to Akte and Shakir, in many cultures, dreams have been an important connection to gods and spirits. It is very common that dreams also can be understood as the travel of the soul, that they can tell the future and give advice. In Tikopia and Senoi cultures, even incestual dreams are met more openly because it is natural to them, and evil spirits are responsible of these sexual dreams. A nightmare can be almost like a rehearsal, as an athlete can go through their performance before the actual performance, especially in children's nightmares. Different animals with their teeth may chase them. The nature of the danger can be studied in psychotherapy. Pushed into the unconscious is what person often fears the most. Something can happen to yourself or loved ones. You are afraid of the ultimate separation from important people, being left alone, losing love, and being destroyed. In general, however, we can say pretty soon it was just a dream. Nightmare is derived from the German word Nachtmar. Mare has also some connections to Scandinavian mythology. There is also a phenomenon called sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a state during wake up or falling asleep in which a person is aware but unable to move or speak. During an episode, one may hallucinate, hear, feel, or see things that are not there, which often results in fear. Episodes generally last less than a couple of minutes. Usually individual experiences anxiety and or the presence of someone, usually a dark figure in the room. In sleep paralysis, the brain suddenly moves from the REM sleep to wakefulness, and your muscles are not yet functioning normally. During REM sleep, muscle tension disappears and the person is relaxed. Individual sleep paralysis are normal at a certain stage of life and do not require treatment. Finally, we have come to a point where we should try to understand the mythology of the Lilith on the contexts of psychoanalytic theory. Lilith wanted to keep her freedom and she was cast out from the paradise. Where did she go? Into the desert by the Red Sea. There she hatched a devil's egg unsuccessfully. The sense of being cast out into psychological development is familiar in feminine psychology, as in many myths of women's individuation, there are elements of surprise and force. Women, unlike men, do not shoulder a knapsack and a sword, mount a steed, and go forth to meet a heroic challenge. Rather more like Lilith-like, they have no choice. They feel cast out and forced into consciousness. This can be also experienced as a period of madness. Sometimes this flight comes reality. Woman does not see any other way than run away. Although the woman is actually doing the leaving, she feels rejected and outraged. Actually, this experience can be described as a time when they make also their animal sounds and cries and the feel of rage. How this trapped beast finds a way to individuation then. She is transformed by her experience of solitude and desolation. She becomes an aspect of the feminine self. If I understand correctly, it is also a question of meeting and mirroring her own shadow. Shadow in the Jungian psychology is a part of ourselves that was repressed. All the difficult parts of ourselves, things we don't want to see and meet in our personality. A woman can experience the Eve and Lilith sides of her nature. If the side of Lilith is not integrated into Eve, Eve stays in infantile needs and is unable to do anything. Secondly, from the man's point of view, Lilith, the seductress, is described by the Kabbalists as harlot who fornicates with men. She fornicates with men who sleep alone, dreaming, and causes them to have impure, spontaneous emissions. She is terrifying but also enchanting, seducing, orgiastic and nightmarish form of the feminine. Lilith is also deadly. She will slowly take away the life force of the man. Second book I want to talk about is written by Mary E. Ayers, and it's about masculine shame. A woman must encounter and survive her non-existence in order to transcend her shame and experience the power of being that gives her the confidence to take responsibility and truly love. The archetypal image of the succubus is one of the most crudely dehumanizing images of woman. If you think that what we have just heard about her appearance, her hands are cut off, replaced by wings, her legs are like claws, her body like an animal, she feels no compassion, wants to eat children, etc. Lilith is born from the unintegrated parts of self and the object images. Today I will end here. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.